Welcome. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And for those of you who are now joining, welcome aboard. We've been here talking a lot about a number of matters, but right now we're talking about members of parliament at risk, among other matters, events from the latest global info analytics. Joining me, Bernice Abu-Baidoo at Lansah. Good morning, Bernice.
Good morning, Benjamin. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So like Benjamin rightly said, we'll be delving into that conversation, focusing on which MPs are safe or which MPs are at risk of losing the coming elections. We'll also be talking about absenteeism in Parliament. You may have heard, top of that list, Adwoa Safo, who we know has been sacked as gender minister. We are not too sure what will happen to her seat in Parliament because the Speaker says he needs time, he can't rush his decision with this. And so we're still waiting. But the interesting thing is that it's not just her, it's not just Kennedy Ejapong, and it's not just Mr. Henry Quartey. There are a number of them. So the big question is, why does it appear that we are picking and choosing? We'll be delving into that discussion with Udikro, which has done some work in that regard. Before we start our conversation, let me just bring this information to you. The attention of World Vision has been drawn to a live television broadcast by a group of people operating under the names World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation on Energy TV and ABTV satellite television stations since June 28, 2022. A review of the video recordings of the programs indicates that these groups are using the logo and some images of World Vision with a view to getting interested people to register with various amounts of money in return for corresponding financial support. World Vision is concerned that its logo and images are being used by the so-called World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation to collect money from the unsuspecting public. World Vision therefore disassociates itself from the so-called World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation and their operations and wishes to caution the general public as such. It's calling on members of the World Vision Fund Club and World Vision Foundation to desist from using its logo, images, and any other material for their activities forthwith. World Vision is a Christian relief development and advocacy organization dedicated to working with children, families, and communities to overcome poverty and injustice. World Vision has been working in all regions of Ghana for the past 42 years. For more information on World Vision Ghana, kindly visit its website. So we'll just kickstart our conversation, and we've got our guests in studio, and an analysis of the Global Info Analytics report, as I've already mentioned, indicates that some high-profile members of Parliament are at risk of losing their seats. Who are these, and what will account for this if it does turn up to, come into reality? So you see there a couple of MPs. So let me just bring you some key personalities. This is Global Info Analytics, NPP seat at risk. All right, so this is Yawase Duchuman. We know he's MP for the Bosomtwe constituency. In 2020, 84.80% was, that's the approval rate, right?
That was the vote.
The votes he was able to pull, and the margin was 69.60%. So look at what is happening now. Likelihood of re-electing an MP. 40%, 11% for the NPP, and 49%. And then for the NDC, 24%, 5%, and 71%. We've got Musa Dankwa, who is Executive Director of Global Analytics. So there is some interpretation to these colors, right?
Yes.
So blue is for
people who are unlikely to vote for the MP, the deep blue, navy blue.
Okay.
Unlikely to vote for the MP. And the light blue, likely or very likely to vote for the MP. Now, in analyzing this kind of result, look at what people are saying on other issues. Okay. If you take the constituency, for example, right direction is 20%.
Sorry, I mean, the gray means neutral, right?
Yeah, neutral.
So that
gray
we
means
just said,
neutral. Yes,
okay.
yes. And then the approval of the president in that context is also very important because sometimes that approval rating could reverberate and affect the MP. In the MP, the president is on 14% approval, 85% disapproval. Now you look at the party affiliation of the people we interviewed in that area. Most of them are MPP, 67% are MPP. NDC, 26%. Floating voters 4 and others 4. Now you look at people who are going to vote for the MP in the constituency. 34% said they will vote for him across all party lines, all voters, 34%. 58% are saying they are unlikely to vote for him, whereas 8 are neutral.
So,
now,
I mean,
the catch is that if you look at his own party within MPP, that's the first graph, only 40% of MPP affiliates said they would vote for him.
Okay.
Compared to 49% of MPP affiliates.
Who said they are unlikely to vote for him. Right, let me just find out, because you do the NDC and then you do the head-to-head analysis. That's for Dr. Baumia, Tremating, and Mahama. But we don't know who you used as an NDC likely MP. Do you use...
No, that's what I want to explain. These are general voters who said they would not vote for the MP. So if you look at the NDC column, the 71% are people who said they wouldn't vote for the current MP, the incumbent.
Okay.
And then 24 said they would vote for him. So we are looking at the overall, his likelihood in the context of MPP voters and NDC voters.
Okay.
We're not matching him against any NDC or MPP candidate.
Okay.
It's just him and him alone.
Interesting. I'd like to see, do you have anything done for Sarah Adwoa Safo?
Not this time.
It would have been interesting to see how it will play into all that we are seeing happening now. But let me just mention that we've got Kina Likimani, who is programs manager of Adikro, joining us via Zoom. And she'll be joining us when we delve into the issue of absenteeism. And she's joined us. She's currently online, listening in as we start the conversation. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having Adikro.
Great.
We also have Same Obeng joining the conversation as in when we have him. We'll also have him give his responses. But an interesting picture you paint. Bosomtwe is a stronghold of the MPP.
Yes.
That is clear. And from these statistics, when you talk about the 40%, even within the MPP respondents who say they would vote for the Honorable Education Minister, Yawase Duchu. And then you come and look at those who say they will not. What picture does that really paint? I mean, those in between are just 11%. But looking at his popularity levels in the last election, what he got, and then the 2020 result, he got 84.8% of the vote. The margin was 69.6%. That is gargantuan.
Yes.
Looking at what this 40% versus 49% paints, I mean, if you do 49% of the entirety of the sum, it would be, that would leave him with what, some 30-something plus percent. How does this play out?
So what we are saying is that he is struggling currently within MPP, which may translate into the primaries, which means that when he comes home to fight for re-election, he could have a challenge because the people in the constituency may not want to vote for him as an MP. But once he's able to cross that primaries hurdle, he will be okay in the general election. We don't expect the NDC to win this seat at all. But he has to struggle to bring his party behind him in the constituency. If somebody should contest him right now in that area, it could be a tough fight because generally people are showing displeasure.
I'll bring in some other, because the names I am seeing here, Manchia South, Napo, you're looking at Kweku Kwating, who is also an incumbent MP for Ejiso, who is
John Kuma.
John Kuma, I beg your pardon, who is incumbent MP for Ejiso, and also on the Finance Committee of Parliament, in fact, Deputy Finance Minister and all of that. You would see that the seats at risk, Ablekuma North, the young person there. But we'll get into all of these. Let's bring in...
Yeah, let me bring in the issue of absenteeism here. And I'm looking at the report put together by Adikro, and it focused on the first meeting of the second session of the 8th Parliament from January to April 2022. And so there are a list of MPs. So they had their names, their constituency, and the number of sittings missed. Top of that list is Sarah Adwoa Safo, who is with the Dom Kwabena constituency, and she's missed 40. Henry Quarte, 30. Ejenim Boating Kweku, Brekum West, 28. Joe Garte, Isikado, has missed 28. Ajuman Menu, Health Minister, has missed 24. Kojo Oponkruma, who is Information Minister and MP for CRB, has missed 24. It's a long list that we have there. But let me come to you, ma'am. It's interesting. Initial reactions I've seen to this report by Odikro from people on social media is it appears that there is some selectivity about who to call out in terms of absenteeism and why others, like I've mentioned, the health minister, the information minister, are not being called out. And there's so much focus on these three people who have appeared before Parliament's Privileges Committee. Do you agree with that?
I think first of all, the reason Odikro is able to do this work is that, you see, the recordings of Parliament, the register is in the votes and proceedings. And in there, an MP is marked present, absent with permission, and then absent. Absent without permission is the issue. Once you have a 14-day grace period to not officially absent yourself, and then after the 15th day, you trip the violation of Article 91(1)(c). But it's in the votes and proceedings. So unless you do what we do, which is that we take the votes and proceedings, we scan it, and then we use software, programming language to tease out the data, and then we verify. It's very intensive now. But it was obvious that the MP for Domika Kwabenya, the Honorable Adwoa Safo, wasn't in Parliament. It's also always obvious. I mean, I'm not making this up. Any absenteeism report of a meeting of Parliament that Odikro has compiled, the Honorable candidate Japan is always on the list. So it's also not very hard to assume he's going to be on the list. And I suppose they had noticed the Honorable Quarte. But in any meeting, there's going to be more than 3 people who trip that violation. Particularly a sizable number of them on this list. I think about 10 to 15 are minister MPs. We always have a problem with minister MPs not filling out this form. I want to emphasize to Ghanaians that the requirement to fill, it's a requirement to fill a very simple form that Parliament itself has designed for its MPs. It's not a letter. It's not a phone call to your leader to say, senior, I'm traveling. It's a simple form that has to be filled. And ministers who are MPs are always tripping and this violation, not filling it out. Of course, it's not all the ministers. So some of them do a better job of informing Parliament when they are going to be away. And some of them are doing a very poor job. It's a mystery because they have a lot of staff. You can actually have somebody whose job is just to fill this thing out for you. I do not understand. But at Odikro, we have always, and it's not just Odikro, emphasized that the constitutional provision about MPs, the executive picking ministers from Parliament, 50% of his cabinet or whatever, that has to go because it just creates a conflict. But beyond that, it's an administrative burden. There is grace. So I think that it is because Parliament isn't compiling the data the way we do it. So it's not obvious because 15 days, I've heard some of the MPs saying that they are not sure our data is correct because they've been seeing some of the people on the list in Parliament. It's not about seeing the people in Parliament. It's about what is in Parliament on votes and proceedings. So unless that is teased out, it's going to be sometimes difficult to, because we know it's paper, it's a register, it's not a biometric register. It's not a program they run to automatically see who is absent. But also, I think we've been struggling with getting Parliament to pay attention to absenteeism.
Yeah.
This is not even about losing seats, because as I said, The Constitution itself gives a grace period. Then the rules say they have to go to be called to the Privileges Committee to explain another grace period. So before we even get to losing the seat, you have 2 grace periods to explain yourself to your employer.
Right, Kina.
And by extension, the Ghanaian people.
Right.
Yes.
So if I get your submission right, and I've just been going through your release, these MPs you've listed here absented themselves for 15 or more days without permission.
Yes, that is the violation.
Sure.
Yes.
Now, let's look at this situation. So we're having a conversation here about a study that's been conducted looking into the possibility of some MPs losing their seats. Let's tie it in with their performance in Parliament. I know that there was no direct correlation or study of that, but let's just examine it and assess it. Previous studies, and I've seen some by Odikro and other organizations, show that a lot of constituents do not even understand what the job of their MP is. And so there are expectations that he will show up at a funeral, a wedding, he will send a contribution, they want to see him in the constituency. But this is the real job they have been mandated to do. That is to sit in Parliament, go through bills, debate issues, formulate laws, and pass agreements. You have a situation where we have it here, key members of government who are also MPs do not show up to do their work. How do you see this playing into the possibility of retaining or losing their seats?
Well, a lot of factors goes into people retaining or losing their seats. One of the reports that we did, I think we were accused of our report lending credence. So I think that one of the elections that NDC lost a lot of seats, and that was not our fault. We just are reporting on this. But what I want to point out is the issue that the threat of losing the seat, either through actual being called on having violated the constitutional provision on absenteeism, or losing the seat at an election, is not, I want to emphasize, it's not the issue. We cannot wait for an MP who is chronically absent to lose their seat in 4 years. There are 4 sessions to any parliament. And I think 3 meetings per session, 12 meetings, and 4 years of representation. We keep on focusing so much on re-elections and retaining seats and retaining parties in power. We lose out on the fact that 4 years interval is a lot of time in the governance and the development of Ghana in the lives of our country. So I'd like for us to dial back from this business of losing seats and really look at, because if we can have a situation where every 4 years MPs are losing their seats, and still have a situation where within those 4 years, we are not getting adequate representation. So we need to focus on how do we move adequate, effective representation, accountability, and transparency within a 4-year parliament. That is the issue. Because we've been doing election and re-election, people have been losing their seats. We are not getting what we want from our parliament. That's what we need to focus on. So it's not exciting that somebody will lose their seat because of this. Because because you see what I'm trying to say is that what happens to representation in the 4 years? This is our problem. We need the rules that have been set down in the Constitution to be followed. We need effective representation every single meeting. We need for the issues of Ghanaians to be addressed. We need for MPs to respect the rules of attendance. And we need for the Privileges Committee to hold people to account, to actually even come and explain yourself. Just come and explain yourself.
Interesting thought. I'll go back to the inferences from both reports, but how exactly do we do what you're talking about? Because it would appear from this list that people have got away practically with absenting themselves from meetings, and the whip isn't cracked. It's only on these 3, interestingly, that the whip is being cracked. And even then,
And
it
the
appears
whip
Sarah
was
Adwoa
cracked
Safo
on-
is the only culprit. So how exactly do we do that?
We need for the media to hammer the point home. We need to reach more Ghanaians, because I think that as much as Odukro does this work, like you are saying, we are always coming up against the wall of Ghanaians not understanding what an MP is supposed to do. And the fact that there are responsibilities, the mandate of Parliament is so powerful and so unique. Only Parliament can hold the executive accountable as a governance institution. And if we just look at it as a 4-year voting cycle, we lose out on it. There's a lot of work we need to do to restore the power of Parliament so that in our favor, it can represent us. So it's the issue has to be, and I know, we need to turn back from elections. After elections have been done, we need to do a better job. Democracy is not only about elections. Elections is a very small, albeit a very important part. But accountability, holding people responsible, letting our MPs know this is not on. Not taking the money that they want to throw at us, and therefore if they throw the money at us as funeral contributions, they are not going to do the work.
But Kina, pardon my interjection. Pardon my interjection, but we have a cycle. Every 4 years we get to do this. I guess it's one of the most punitive measures we can bring to bear on our members of parliament if we see them not performing. I agree. A lot of the time we don't pay attention to who is in parliament. There are members of parliament who even go there. Yes, they participate in lawmaking, so to speak. Don't ask any questions. Don't table anything on the floor. They are practically just stumps there, so to speak. Yeah. But in terms of giving effect to what you're saying, that's my concern. The media can shout on the rooftops about parliamentarians do the right thing systemically. How do we get that done? Look at the list that has been put out. You put out the list. From 15 to 40. We're talking about 3 of them. There are 30 plus of them involved. So how really do we get Parliament working?
We need to, with regards to this particular list, to the regard of absenteeism attendance, we need to really push for constitutional reform and to revoke the article that forces presidents to choose
the majority of ministers from Parliament.
We need to change that. We ourselves need to change how we approach governance. We need to change how we need to understand. There's so much we need to do. We need to address party corruption, party politics, fundraising. These are more, you see, the elections are very important, yes. But if you are stuck in a cycle where you're within the 4 years, you are not doing things to change. We need to do these things differently. I commend Ghanaians for having voted into Parliament, for the 8th Parliament, for this Parliament to be even so close, and sometimes a hung Parliament. So if we are going to look at elections, we need to vote differently. We need to continue to we need to do things to shake it up. So if we go to elections and you are returning the same people, shake it up. If you, after your person has won, hold them accountable in a different way. There's so much that we can be doing. We act as though we need to broaden the conversation across Ghana so that some of these things that we talk about are not only happening in English and are not only happening in Accra. That's when we get the things that we want out of it, because an MP is really accountable to their constituents.
Right.
If their constituents are not getting the benefit of a conversation we are having, it's not going to help.
Right. We'll come back to you shortly, but let me introduce Sami Oping, who is with Parliamentary Network Africa. Good morning to you, Sami, and thanks for joining us once again. The last time we spoke, I posed a direct question to you about what your reaction would be if Sarah Adwoa Safo came back into the country and still had her job in Parliament. You said you would be scandalized. We know for a fact that she's been sacked or relieved of her position as gender minister, but her seat in Parliament is still hanging. The Speaker says, I won't rush this. I need time to think through and make a decision. How does that come across to you?
Well, it's a missed opportunity by Parliament to directly show leadership on a subject matter that they themselves have been battling with, the issue of absenteeism, and to have allowed 3 more months of indecision on the subject matter, because they are returning, I am told, in the 3rd week of October. So to have allowed 3 more months of no decision on the subject matter is just 3 more months of they communicating to us that they may not be as serious on this subject matter as they profess to be. And you see, when these things happen, it causes even bigger impunity within members of parliament. Now, take a look at this. I heard the conversations with Kina, and let me commend Odikro highly for these works. I think that these signals should let Parliament know that if they thought that deferring this decision for the next 3 months means that we are going to forget about it, they are probably deceiving themselves, because reports like this will continue to come up. We'll continue to remind them about the need to take a decision on these 3 and what have you. But the 3 that were referred to the Privileges Committee, and I think this is a little bit also of clarification. I've seen a lot of what for me appears to be a bit of a misunderstanding on social media. The 3 that were referred to the Privileges Committee are 3 members who flouted that particular article of the Constitution in the first session of Parliament. So that is in 2021. So these were the corporates, if I should put it that way, of 2021. The report just released by Adikro, I've cited it, is talking about those who have flouted it in the first meeting of 2022. What this means to me is that because a decision has still not been taken on a certain group of 3, of course, the referral to Privileges Committee was done in May. So even the referral, at the time of the referral, we had not, at the period that Odikro's report captured, by that time, the referral had not been made. But what it means is that there is a growing increase in the level of absenteeism flouting that particular constitutional provision from 3 now to 33. And if they continue not to take a firm decision on these matters, 33 will move to 100. And we will soon have parliaments that are empty, and we will soon have them as leaders, the speaker himself, his deputy speakers, complaining all the time about the fact that the chamber is empty. If the chamber is empty and you are frustrated about it and you want work done, you must take decisive actions on it. And so it was a missed opportunity, but 3 months we will wait. If the speaker wants to make a reasoned decision in a matter of 3 months, we will wait. He has the power, or the institution of Parliament has the power to make that particular decision. But if they think that 3 months will make us forget, and they think that procedural gymnastics will make us forget, then I think that they probably are deceiving themselves.
Sammy, okay, so there are those who say that there could be justifiable reasons why the Speaker of Parliament wants more time to think through this. Do you in any way think of any justifiable reason why an MP should be out of Parliament for this long, for which reason she should be given some sympathy or some empathy in determining whether her seat should remain or not?
As at yesterday, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Dom Kwapenya had been absent in Parliament for 3 straight meetings of Parliament, so 1 full year. This 8th Parliament has only been in place for 1.5 years, and out of that 1.5 year, 1 year, so 2/3 of it, an individual Member of Parliament has simply reneged on her responsibility. That 1 year is also a quarter, 1/4 of the entire duration that a Parliament has. I really do not think that anybody who puts any other thing above his or her parliamentary duty for a full year has any business in Parliament. And so there could absolutely be no justifiable reason for this, in my opinion. And you see, the Constitution was very magnanimous. It says that 15 sitting days in a meeting of Parliament. If you've got to be absent, like Kina was explaining, write a simple request for permission. It's a form, like she explained. Fill it out, submit it at the right quarters, so that you are marked as absent with permission. If you do not do this, you miss the work in the House. You are hauled to the Privileges Committee because the Constitution, same in its magnanimity, decides that, okay, you cannot be, declared guilty without being heard. So come and tell us why you were not there, so that the Privileges Committee would determine whether this is justifiable or not. You do not make yourself available. We hear you on television and we see you on social media making and passing comments, which are not the fora for which such comments must be made, because Parliament is the House of Record. So you go to the appropriate forum, you make your case, everybody understands you, and everybody says that let's move on. If you do not do all of this, for me, there is absolutely no justification. And you see, it is a problem because this goes to the heart of the representational function of members of Parliament, which for us in civil society and for us as citizens, we must guard jealously. Because all of us cannot be in Parliament, we queue, vote for individuals and say, represent us. So to think that the most populous constituency in Ghana has for one full year not been heard on the floor of Parliament, not been, involved in the activities that goes on the floor of Parliament, for me, is a big issue, and we must not take kindly at all.
So Sam, just a quick one. It's interesting. I'm trying to draw some linkages between the two surveys we are looking at here, or the two reports. Odikro telling us about these 33 members of Parliament, and then the Global Info Analytics in terms of which members of Parliament are at risk of losing their seats, both in the internal elections, the primaries, and then in the general elections. There's quite an interesting picture, fusing the two together. Guess what? You would find there on the list, Yawase Duchum, Member of Parliament for Busumtri, also Education Minister. He is on both lists in terms of susceptibility to losing a seat, and he is also one of the absentees, according to Odikro's list. Then you pick John Peter Amewu, Member of Parliament for Hohoe. He's also there. Matthew Opoku Prempe Napo is also on both lists. You have Ursula Owusu Ekufo, Communications Minister, also on that list, Member of Parliament for Ablekuma West, among others. Do you think this could play out in terms of, how do you think this could play out in terms of absenteeism in Parliament and the real effect it could have in shaping the outcome of elections?
Well, the report that showed who are likely or at risk of losing their seats at primary levels and at main elections level,
right,
is one that was done with many reasons, but constituency-specific reasons why people may lose their seats or may retain their seats. And if this gets compounded, which means that already you have challenges within your own constituency, if this gets compounded by the kinds of conversations that are going on with media reports and these absenteeism reports, then obviously you as a member of Parliament are digging your own grave. And if, like I said from the very beginning, once they are the branch of government that must hold the executive branch to account, they must know that the one who watches the watchman would be watched consistently, and for which reason those of us in civil society will also continuously look out to things like this. And that's why I commended Odikro from the very beginning. If they continue to absent themselves, continuously it will be made known. Their people will know that when they send them to Accra to come work for them, they decided that they will not do that particular work and will do other things, for which reason the people will determine whether they have business in Parliament or not. But you see, like Kina said, this goes beyond just waiting for the next election.
Right.
This goes to the heart of making members of Parliament recognize that we are not pleased with some of these things when they do them, because 4 years down the line, they will come shouting at the rooftop. And sometimes these chronic absentees will be the ones shouting the most about delays in their ex gratia, about delays in certain things that they are entitled to. Yet, if you miss work for a full year and you think that you deserve 100% ex gratia, then I think that we should be looking at some of these things. So we'll continue to trumpet these things.
Okay.
And I think that those who take the people of Ghana seriously will have to change their ways and ensure that they go to the place where they've been assigned to go do work. which is the House of Legislation.
All right. Thank you so much, Samuel Bing, for joining the conversation. He is with Parliamentary Network Africa. Let's come back into the studio and wrap the conversation with Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics. I have a few thoughts for you, even as we push the conversation forward. I find it interesting. The internal elections of the MPP and Bernice as well. So these members of parliament, you point to big wigs in the MPP. I'm talking about Dr. John Kuma, Matthew Opoku Prempeh, Yao Osei Educhum. These are cabinet ministers who are members of parliament as well. And when you look at the reasons you cite here, John Kuma, for example, well, at least John Kuma is a deputy. A little over half of MPP voters are likely to vote for him. This MP could make it through the primaries, but we expect him to win the seat if he wins the primaries. But only 35% of voters are likely to vote for him. Then you look at Manshia South, and you also look at the fact that he is on the ropes, as 71% of voters are unlikely to vote for him, and then 58% of voters unlikely to go for Dr. Osei Educhum. These three alone could be huge casualties for the MPP, especially if they even bow out internally. Let's look at that.
I think what this may have in the general election is that if they are the candidates for the MPP, it could have impact on turnout in MPP in the constituency, because people seem to be revolting against some incumbents, some known faces in parliament. And in an election where you are in a back foot, I think some of these people will will create more anger to the voters. So that's what we are seeing now. Once people are angry with you, and if you're able to script through the primaries, the anger will continue. And
it will reflect in the general elections.
Exactly. So it gives the party the chance to see, okay, who among the big wigs with him we can allow him to fall by his own sword, and who we should not propel. When you do that, you are giving people options that they don't like.
This reminds me of what happened in the just ended elections, where we knew that there were some kingmakers who were insisting that certain people, even incumbents, should step down.
Right.
Talk of the
Fomena is
MP.
a typical situation.
Classic example. And so even within the MPP itself, there appears, I mean, even, if you decide to put this aside, history has taught us that there appears to be a lot of discontent with delegates and who and how they choose their candidates for the MP position. But it's very interesting. Let me just come to you, because quite recently we've had the police service hit hard on methodology
maybe just before you come in with methodology, just quickly, because we've done the MPP side, let's also do the NDC side very quickly.
Yeah.
When it comes to the NDC side, in terms of the seats at risk, you only cite Okaikwe North and Teresa Awuni there. But some of the big wigs in there who could go, Koleklote.
Yes.
We have the Rawlings, factor in there, Zaneto, Ajaman Rawlings. Then Odododiodo. I found that interesting, because you're saying that Nilante Vanderpoy is at risk, and then we have Esikuma Odobe Mbrakwa as well. Just walk us through that briefly, and then we shall get into it.
If you look at Ajaman Rawlings, she has an internal problem.
Which is what?
Which is the party is not fully behind her. The people who are going to vote for her within her party are split. Some are sitting on the fence, some say they won't vote for her, and very few say they are voting for her. So in an election where it's going to be very close, if you can't rally your party behind you solidly, you're going to be in trouble.
And you're likely to lose.
You're likely to lose. The same way, Orododio, the same problem. And this is not united in that constituency, and that is giving the incumbent MP a hell of a time. So you have to really understand whether you are being backed by your party wholly, or some of the members are sitting on the fence and thinking, should we vote for him or should we let him go? So that's what is happening in some of these races.
Interesting. So let's zoom in on how you arrived at these conclusions.
All right. This is part of the national poll that we carried out, where we interviewed 5,490 voters across the country with a margin of error of 1.737% and 99% confidence interval. Now, these samples were assigned to each constituency based on the size of that constituency relative to the areas we are polling. So there are certain areas that have good number of sample. And that sample gives you sometimes just a hint of what could be going on there. In some cases where we believe that the candidate is a very high-profile candidate, and we think the number could be statistical noise, we go back again and reconfirm. So as we are speaking right now, as we speak, we are confirming Ifutu constituency.
Okay.
And we are confirming another Adompre, Adwoa in some.
Okay. Ifutu,
yes.
Alexander Afenyo Market.
Yes. And by Sunday, those reports will be out. And we'll see whether we are confirming what this sample has given us. So this may be a sign. It may not necessarily be the entire story, but it gives you opportunity to see, okay, what can I do? Can I commission a bigger survey to see the entire constituency, whether this is okay or just a statistical noise? So people should not take it kindly. I heard people in, I said, look, take it on a face value, go and do your own work and see what is happening, because a lot is happening. And we are hearing so much from voters that if we should play some of the things we're hearing from the field.
So I'm interested. So how was the information gathered? Was this a questionnaire? Was this qualitative or quantitative?
Okay, this is quantitative. We deploy the questionnaire on tablets and give it to our field officers to go out and vote, to take the survey. We sampled a minimum of 3 electoral areas in the national sample. Because in the national sample, the focus is not on the constituency. So, but we at least cover 3 electoral areas within the constituency. And then people who are interviewed randomly on the street without any pre-selection criteria.
So how do you know, for example, if somebody is a member of the NPP or the NDC?
Good. What we do is that we know the Ghanaian voter very well. If you start asking them their party affiliations and stuff like that, the following questions, they will lie to you. So we engage them in a very nationalistic conversation. That they think, oh, this is a national issue. And we begin to zoom down slowly into the political issues. By that time, he's comfortable with you. And then at the end of the interview, when he has answered the key questions, then you ask them, oh, how old are you? Are you a student? Or are you a worker? All those questions. And then at the very last question is, we ask them, which political party do you normally vote for? We don't say you are a member of.
Okay.
Which political party do you usually or normally vote for in an election? Oh, sometimes I vote this party, sometimes I vote that party. That makes them a floating voter. Oh, as for me, I normally vote for MPP affiliate. As for me, I normally vote for NDC affiliate. We have seen a new block of voters currently who are saying other parties, other than CPP, PPP, PNC, which means the GFP, the small parties, and they are amounting to over 20-30% of the blocks. We believe they are not other parties.
Let me just quickly satisfy my curiosity on this bit. So you did some internal analysis, and that would mean then that it's delegates who are going to vote for that person. So if there's no provision in there as to whether the person is a card-bearing member or a delegate, how does it feed into the internal decisions that will be taken?
You see, there's always a lag between the views of the public and those of the delegates. When you are ahead in the general public, the delegates are part of us. They live with us. They know and they hear when you are doing well, and they know when you're not doing well. Right. So eventually the poll will catch up with you. And with time, this will feed into the constituency. And eventually, the delegates say, look, people are saying that you're not doing well. So I don't think I can go with you. So this is the effect it may have on the races, even if the internal races.
It's a very interesting picture you've painted for us. I'm sure as you keep getting more information, we'll also keep, getting better. But for me, if I were a member of parliament and I found myself here, it would simply mean I had a lot more work to do. My work was cut out for me. But thank you so much, Musa Dankwa of Global Info Analytics. We also had Samir Bing of the Parliamentary Network Africa and Kina Likimani of Odikro joining this conversation.